All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. You guys are way too kind. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. First and foremost, one thing I want to do at the start of this program. Surely, you know, we like to keep things light and like to keep things positive on this show, but we can't ignore life and world events when they happen. And one thing that we as F4L do is offer our support to those who are in need. And we stand with those who have been affected with the tragedies in Israel. And we offer them all of our best condolences. We hope that peace reigns throughout the world, as always. We hope that the F4L lifestyle finds the world, and hopefully things can resolve in a peaceful manner. What I'd like to do at the start of this program is have a moment of silence to honor those who have been affected by this in any way, shape, and form, as we offer our condolences and offer our hearts to those who have been affected by this senseless tragedy. Thank you. Thank you, folks. And let's get to the meat of the matter, and let's get into the first round of business. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to my Ant Band. Guys, take us away. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, yet again, for another exciting episode of the F4L Headquarters Podcast as we get ready for our first encounter. First and foremost, let's get a little mood music, shall we? When you talk about icons and when you talk about anticipated films, I remember growing up, one of the most anticipated films growing up was the epic encounter between two of the biggest names in horror history. And we got that film, and I know a lot of people genuinely in the film community are not overly fond of it, but you know what? For the fact of the matter is people asked for it for years, and you know what? They gave it to us. Love it or hate it, they gave it to us, and it featured some of the best performances by those who were, in fact, icons. So, that being said, here we go. So let's talk about Monster Mania 56. This is going to take place this coming weekend in Hunt Valley, Maryland, at the very last time. A place that us Monster Maniacs called our secondary home at the Delta Hotel by Marriott, which is where in Hunt Valley, Maryland, where Monster Mania has called home in October. This year, they added a show in April, and unfortunately, we got the news recently that that hotel is no longer going to be around, and that they are closing the hotel, and that Monster Mania is the very last event to take place in this hotel. So, of course, we at being Monster Maniacs, we're going to live this epically, and we're going to make this go out with a bang and without a hitch. And I don't think we're going to let that down. And with the amount of amazing guests, vendors, and all of the amazing fans, staff who make Monster Mania possible, it's going to be an epic weekend as always. And of course, the reason I'm doing this show today is because tomorrow I will be on the road. Tomorrow morning I'll be heading on the road as I'm taking the train down to Hunt Valley, Maryland myself, as I will be there to celebrate and to work with Monster Mania as a proud member of the staff and the roster there. I take pride in the fact that I call these amazing people who work with me at Monster Mania brothers and sisters, and in all honesty, the fans, the people who run the show, myself and everyone included, we are one big, extended family. So we look forward to that. So let's take a peek at who's going to be, as far as guest-wise. I don't know about everybody else. Whenever you look at one of these pop culture conventions, one of the big draws is meeting the celebrities who come for a moment to share your thoughts and to thank people for their work, hopefully, or to celebrate someone. Now, yes, the actors' strike is still going on, so I'm sure that's going to impact some things, but you know what? The show must go on, and these are true professionals who are still going to come here and meet their fans, because you know what? It goes to speak to the gratitude and the level of how much respect they have, these actors and actresses who, they can't make films right now, so what's better than that than meeting their fans and the legions of people who have supported them over the years. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity right now for us to shower these people with gratitude and, whatever we can to make their time right now a little happier, as right now they're not being able to work, which I'm sure is difficult for a lot of them. So I think at Monster Mania we should embrace that and embrace these awesome, amazing, talented people for years who have entertained all of us in many different ways. Let's chat about some of those very people who you will get to meet this weekend, other than yours truly. I mean, that's a given. And, of course, the amazing other people who I am blessed to be working alongside of. Let's chat about my old school pen pal from back in the day. That's going to be a story we'll tell maybe a little later. But Elijah Wood will be making his first appearance at Monster Mania. It was only a matter of time before Elijah Wood made his way to Monster Mania. He's been doing these conventions for a little while. Just a brief little background. Way back in the days in the 80s when you actually had pen pals, our teacher, our grade school teacher where I grew up, she actually moved from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and the school that she had came from, she had, made arrangements to have pen pals to this random school in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is, by the way, where Elijah Wood is from. And turns out my pen pal, who I was assigned to, because at first you don't know who you're going to get, and then after writing letters back and forth, you get to know them. That's the idea of a pen pal. And you get to learn a little bit more about cultures and so forth. This is a thing that has died off since the age of social media. Now, I guess Instagram or Facebook has made this an even bigger thing. But back in the day, you used to get old pen and paper and letters in the old snail mail. And Elijah Wood was my pen pal back in the day before all the glitz and the glamour. Before he became the very talented actor that he was my pen pal. I had seen him when I was working for the time being at Rhode Island Comic Con, and he actually remembered who I was. It was a little bummed out that I was working with my good old friend Robert England, whom I'd known from my horror world, I guess you'd say. It's one of those small worlds, but it's going to be good to see Elijah Wood again, and this is his first time at Monster Mania. Hopefully everyone else makes him welcome, and Elijah Wood's always been a cool guy. I think people are going to enjoy Elijah Wood's first time at Monster Mania. Let's make him feel welcome, and at the last, show at Hunt Valley, so let's make it out with a bang. The next person who's going to be there, what a huge thing this is. Yes, as if you couldn't tell by the tacky music, the best version of the Punisher in the film series, Thomas Jane, is coming to for the very first time to Monster Mania. I'm very excited about this, as the Punisher is my favorite comic book character, and I think out of the offerings thus far we've had for the Punisher, Thomas Jane has so far done the best job portraying my favorite comic book character. Just thought I'd mention that. He's been also some stellar performances in things like the Fog and the Mist and several other things by Thomas Jane. But you know what? I can't wait to hang out with him and talk to him and tell him how much I appreciated his performance in bringing and showing the respect to the Punisher that was so gladly needed. Another person making his return to Monster Mania, one of the most requested people out there, and he is someone who used to be at Monster Mania, and he's making his return. He is the original comeback king, and I personally, this is a young man who's been kind of all over the place, and we keep missing each other. Well, we're going to be in the same place on the same weekend, ladies and gentlemen, as Corey Feldman, the multi-talented superstar that he is going to be making his return to Monster Mania for the last time at the Hunt Valley location. He's only going to be there for Friday and Saturday, so make sure you folks who are planning accordingly, you are aware that Corey Feldman's only going to be there for Friday and Saturday only. And if you want to meet, the Lost Boy himself, the man behind the Stand By Me, and the guy who named the Gremlin Stripe, then you need to make sure you get down to Monster Mania this weekend in Hunt Valley, Maryland, so you can do so. You want to talk about talented young man. Not only is he a talented actor, right now he can't really talk a lot about what he has done in the acting world, but his music is off the chart. And when you think about the people who he's associated with, people who he has hung out with, and inspirations, it's clear to see that a lot of that has impacted a lot of his amazing musical talents. And the comeback king, Corey Feldman, is going to be returning to Monster Mania this weekend. We can't wait. Joining him is his other Frog Boy brother, Jameson Newlander, will be also making his Monster Mania return. Alyssa Sutherland will also be there, along with William Fletcher from Armageddon. Alyssa Sutherland, of course, from the new Evil Dead Rise film. And, of course, William Fletcher from the Armageddon series, perhaps you know him from, as that captain who gave Bruce Willis that one chance to survive and save the world from that dastardly asteroid. So William Fletcher making his first appearance at Monster Mania. And making her convention debut, Susie Bacon, who is the daughter of course, Kevin Bacon, who, by the way, I can say that in meeting Kevin Bacon, he is one of the nicest dudes out there. Very talented also. He's another musically inclined individual. But Alyssa Sutherland from the hit movie Smile that did a really good job there. She'll be making her Monster Mania and convention appearance at Monster Mania. Her very first convention, making Monster Mania her debut. We can't wait. Also joining her this weekend will be Randy Quaid, good old Uncle Cousin Eddie, and Greg Nicoretaro, the special effects musician and the mastermind behind some of the best effects from The Walking Dead and several other projects. Greg Nicoretaro, another great talented individual, makeup artist, genius, going to be part of the Monster Mania celebration this weekend. Kerr Smith will be making his first appearance at Monster Mania. Kerr Smith from multiple different genres and films, and we look forward to welcoming him to his first time at Monster Mania. And of course, you can't just have a bunch of Monster Maniacs around there without a few bikers, right? Not just any bikers, but you need to get the Sons of Anarchy. So making one of the most popular people at Monster Mania, Mark Boone Jr. and Tommy Flanagan, make their return to Monster Mania. We look forward to seeing them there again for this weekend. Making his first time, one of the newest members of the outfit, making his Monster Mania debut will be Kenny Johnson. Will be making his first time joining the Sons of Anarchy reunion. So that should be fun. And of course, by process of elimination, Monster Mania takes place this weekend, starting on Friday. What is the date on Friday, ladies and gentlemen? As there's only one this year, and if you answered Friday the 13th, then you were correct. And of course, what would it be without what horror convention in October would be complete, especially on Friday the 13th, without a stellar Friday the 13th reunion, as the Hagans have really stacked the card with this one. So, Derek Mears, Kimberly Beck, Camilla and Carrie Moore, and C.J. Graham, William Garrett, Warrington Gillette, and Ken Kirzinger. I am horrible at that. Ken Kirzinger. He's a very nice guy, folks. I just butchered his name again, but all of these individuals are fantastic human beings. Some of the nicest giants you'll ever meet, as some of these people. But they'll all be taking part in the Monster Mania Friday the 13th celebration, along with Lawrence Monson, and the man behind the music, Harry Andini. We look forward to meeting him, the man behind the music of Friday the 13th and several other scores, making him a musical icon. And also making only on Sunday will Kane, aka Glenn Jacobs, the mayor of Knott's County, going to be taking a trip up to Hunt Valley, Maryland this weekend, Sunday only, to be part of Monster Mania, the very last show at the Delta Hotel Marriott. We're grateful that he is able to fit us into his schedule, and I understand that there was a lot of maneuvering that had to take place on his part. So we want to thank Glenn Jacobs for being so Monster Maniac-like. Goes to show you the professionalism of professional wrestlers. So there you go. And also, as always, Scott Jackson and Buzz Hanson, of course, not together, they're going to be there. Scott Jackson, the man behind the imagery, and also Harry Andolini, part of the Living Corpse group. And we look forward to Monster Mania this coming weekend. I also will be there, of course, because, it's iconic, and it's going to be the weekend, and I'm going to be there, because why not? So, as a thing, come by, say hello. I only bite on the weekends, so you have nothing to worry about there. And I am up to date with my shots, so you have nothing to worry about on that occasion. But anyway, and if you do see me, don't be afraid to, say hello, because in that establishment, we're all friends, and I'm there to make sure everyone has a great time, an epic time. And, it's me, let's face it. I mean, a lot of people might wonder, what is it like to meet me in real life? Well, much like how it sounds on this show. I talk a lot. I'm very social for the most part. I am focused, and I also make sure the work is done. I am one of those people. I'm probably the most dependable people that you can worry about there. I want to make sure everyone's having a good and safe time, at the same time as having making sure everyone's safe as well as everyone's having an epic time. That is my responsibility, and that's why I will see to it that you all do that. This weekend, at Monster Mania 56, and of course you can go to monstermania.net for more information. Don't want to miss this at the last show, last hurrah at the Hunt Valley, Maryland location at the Delta Hotel Marriott this weekend. It is, by the way, all booked up. There is no rooms available, so don't think you're going to bounce into the hotel and whatever. But we welcome you guys to come in for the day if you're not staying there, and be part of this epic weekend. This weekend in Hunt Valley, Maryland. Again, I will be leaving tomorrow morning to make the trip down there, so should be very, very exciting. All right, folks, get ready. And we're going to get ready for our next portion. Ants. All right, folks. So this portion here, I'm going to be doing a film review on the latest, addition to the Pet Sematry franchise. Can we call it that now? Stephen King's Pet Sematry has been given the prequel treatment this year, as I have viewed the Bloodline titled Pet Sematry, I guess you'd say. I just butchered that whole thing, but that's okay. They butchered a movie, so I guess we're even on that. All right, so let's chat about this. So, give me 1 second here, folks. I'm going to give you this the right way. There's always two ways to do things, folks: the right way and not so wrong with the right way. And I tend to like to do things the proper way. Does that make sense? I hope so. All right. I'm not going to need to look at the notes much. But what I do want to do is go over the... First and foremost, I'm not going to have to worry about this. So the same director who directed the original 1989 version of the Pet Sematry is the same person who both wrote and directed this one. And also, on top of this, in addition to that, I should say, she also, directed, of course, and of course, apparently Stephen King's given a written credit. Remember, Pet Sematry in its lore was originally written by the author and the master of horror from New England, the master of Bangor, that being Stephen King. So I'm hoping that the writing portion is just them acknowledging the fact that he wrote the book and the source material. So again, I'm not going to go into great detail in case there's somebody who wants to see this. But I do have to make some comments about some things. And those of you guys who have listened to my film reviews, a couple things to know. One, I also am a filmmaker. I am also a writer. I also help with casting, and I also help out with, sometimes a studio might want to know like where a good place to film is in an area for a setting, and I will help them in my area. If they come to my area, they want to know where can I film such and such a scene. A lot of studios have trusted me with finding those locations. So I have a lot of little small responsibilities in the film working world. I've actually made my own films. I've written several screenplays. So if people think that I'm just hating on people because I can't do it, it's not that at all. And also, I don't call it hating on it. It is very much constructive criticism. A lot of times, film critics come very hard on films, and they give it a star rating and all these other things. I'm not about that. I am a very realist, and I look at everything in many different ways. One of the things that makes me a good critic is the fact that I am blunt, I am honest, and I call it how it is. but also I don't just say, something to be negative. I'll explain why I believe this or what my issues will be with certain things. Those of you who've listened to, I think it was last week's episode where I did the top 10 my top 14 most overrated horror movies of all time. You heard some of those movies on that list, and I'm sure a lot of those are, movies that have so much prowess and so much respect from the, quote, horror community. But what I'm saying is also, remember, with any kind of a criticism, with any kind of a person who will critique another person's work, there's going to be someone who's not going to agree, and that's perfectly fine. No, not everyone has to agree with what I believe or what I think. And that's perfectly logical and perfectly understandable. But in the same sense, people respect my opinions because I'm blunt, I'm honest, and I don't candy coat things, and I have ways of looking at things. So, that being said, we're going to get this review going momentarily. I am looking for something that I am not immediately having right at the top. And I apologize for this. Alrighty, folks. Bear with me 1 second as I look for my notes. You know what? It's probably right in front of my computer. I have so many. Now, to be fair, the notes are not the notes that I wrote are not necessarily... I just want to get you... Well, I don't even need notes. Forget it. The reason I don't need the notes is because I know what I feel and I know what I say and whatnot. What I wanted to do is give you guys what I usually... Here's how I do a film review. For those people who are just tuning in, maybe you've never heard a film review by me. Here's the thing. How I look at a movie, how I do a film review, first I tell you that the meat and potatoes, what they claim the movie, the name of the movie, who made it, who wrote it, and the people who star in the films. And then what I will do is I will break it into 4 categories. First is plot and setting. Does the story make sense? Is it easy to follow? And whatnot. The second part is casting, because as a filmmaker and as someone who does casting, I think your cast is probably one of the most important things for any production, no matter what it is. You can have a really bad script and have the best talent to make, ultimately make ham salad out of, ham, right? So the one after that is location and time period. Does everything match up? Does everything look good? Is it shot well? Is the lighting okay? Is it too dark? Is it too light? Basically talking about the production value as far as can I see everything and is everything lining up, detail, whatnot. Contract. I guess you could say continuity as well. The final part, the 4, is ultimately what all filmmakers should look for in any film or anything that they make. And ultimately any artist should be looking for this last thing, and that is a feeling. You should have you should spark some kind of a feeling at the end of whatever you as the artist, your main goal is to establish some type of connection to your audience. You want to get a feeling. Now, in this case, you wrote a horror film, so the idea of the horror film is to scare your audience, to have them walk away with a little bit of, creeped out or whatever. In this case, there are you could take that premise and use it towards any kind of film you're trying to get the point of. The biggest thing about it is whenever you do any kind of a project, you really want to make sure you have some type of long-lasting effect and some type of feeling out of it. Because if you don't get any kind of a feeling after watching a film, or people are just looking at their watch and people are just, there's nothing worth sustainable in that project, then ultimately the fans don't care and you wasted your time. So, in that aspect, that's what you don't want. And I got to say that so far I've never had a film that I have not had any kind of a feeling towards, one way or the other. I think the good thing about me is, again, being able to kind of take it back, looking at different aspects. I can look at a film both as someone who's worked in the film industry in multiple different positions, but I can also look at it as a fan's perspective, how a fan might want to look at something and, whatever else. And then using, some basic how people can contrive things, I kind of use that third eye, if you would, to kind of oversee both and kind of blend them together, if that makes any sense. I guess once we start the film review, you'll probably understand. So let me start by giving you guys the, quote, meat and potatoes, as I call it, which is basically going to be me telling you the name of the movie, who wrote it, who directed it, and, all of those kind of pertinent informations regarding the project. Bear with me 1 second, folks. I did write all this out to make my life easier. But I have been a busy man lately, and I also had to prepare for the trip, so bear with me, folks. And I'm going to tell you guys this right off the bat. I don't trust a lot of sources except for maybe IMDb, but I do want to say that there are some. I myself am very much aware of some false statements done on IMDb, so take some things with a grain of salt. For example, I've seen people take credit for other people's work, and it's not real, so buyer beware. But anyway, I'm going to use IMDb because I feel it's still trusted more than other places. All right, so this film is called, the film I'm going to review is Pet Sematry Bloodlines. Came out this year, 2023. It is rated R. And this is the description they have, or the plot, as they say. It's listed as a fantasy horror. And it goes, 1969, a young Judd Crandall and his childhood friends band together to confront an ancient evil that has gripped their town of Ludlow. All right, so that's the premise. That's the meat and potatoes there. It was directed, again, by Lindsay Anderson Beer. She also has a writer's credit for this, as well as Jeff Belair. And, of course, Stephen King, the author of the book, has also that. Okay, so as far as that goes, that's all I'm going to give you for that. I'm going to tell you some of the actors or the people who performed in this. Jackson White, who played Judd Crandall, young Judd Crandall, I should say, or I should say 20-something-year-old Judd Crandall, Jackson White. Natalie Allen Lind played Norma. Forrest Goodluck played Manny Rivers. Manny Rivers was played by Forrest Goodluck. And Isabella LeBlanc played Donna Rivers, his sister. And get these names. Henry Thomas as Dan Crandall. Jack Melhern as Timmy Baderman, and David Duchovny as Bill Baderman. Now, there are other people listed. I'm going to choose to not relinquish everyone in this casting thing because really, in all honesty, they really focus on a few people in this whole movie. So, let's... I give you all the meat and potatoes. Now it's time to kind of hold people accountable and talk about the film review part. Okay. So first and foremost, this is a prequel to Pet Sematry that has already been established. So Pet Sematry, for those people who are living under a rock, is a Stephen King novel about people who... bury things in this ancient burial ground that when they come back, they do come back to life, but when they come back to life, they're not quite the same, and they become villainous, monstrous, and they become murderous. They're not nice people or things when they come back. So this film has already had a remake that took place 2014. I think. One sec. Was it 2014? I hope it wasn't. One second, folks. Let me just double check that. I think it was 2018. Let me just double check. Okay. 2019. I'm sorry. The original film came out in 1989. That was with Dale Metcalf. That's the oldest version. Playing Judd Crandall in that was the legendary Fred Gwynne from The Munsters or My Cousin Vinny. And of course, in the 2019 version, the legendary John Lithgow, another strong character actor, portrayed Judd Crandall in the remake. There was a Pet Sematry 2 that really doesn't... I mean, it does feature the same premise, burying things in the burial ground. Starred Edward Furlong, after Terminator 2. And also Anthony Edwards from ER was also played in that one as well as a veterinarian. Because Dale Metcalf in the original one played the doctor, the town doctor. So, of course, Anthony Edwards, who was in ER and whatever else, he actually played a veterinarian in the part 2. Now, part 2 has been no one has paid attention to this film. Part 2, we're not going to disclose that one. But this is a prequel to those. So, anyone who has seen either version of Pet Sematry, 1989 or the 2019 version, 1989 or the 2019 version, is aware that Judd Crandall, who's lived in Ludlow, which is where most of these things all take place, which is where this burial ground takes place, which is located supposedly. He is this old man as he's introduced, and he's played by two very profound actors at that time. Very noticeable actors. All honesty, I don't remember the last thing I've seen John Lithgow in prior to this, if I'm being completely honest. So, it was nice and refreshing to see John Lithgow in another project. John Lithgow, is a very stellar character actor. He's done a lot of theater. Recently, I think, if I'm trying to think of a movie or a project that you might know John Lithgow from, if you're my age, maybe you remember from Harry and the Hendersons. He played, the patriarch in the Henderson family. He was also, for those people who like Christmas movies, he was the villain in Santa Claus the movie. And of course, he was on that 30 Rock show with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who way back in the day, before he was the Cape Crusader or whatever else he is now. So, that's a lot of backstory to Judd Crandall because it needs to be important. And we need to point that out because this is the prequel to that. So, in the Pet Sematry movies, the ones we are aware of, and I'm going to talk about those movies and not those ones in detail versus the one that, this one, because in case, spoilers. The older ones are old enough that if you want to see these, by all means, you should have already seen them already. But if you haven't, they are older. So, spoiler alert, I guess, for those people who really don't like spoilers. But, taking the 1989 version, Judd Crandall, who was played by Fred Gwynne, told this new family, because it's the same premise, again, the same premise. The doctor comes, the Boston doctor moves with his family to this town in Maine, a nice quiet town, except for the big nasty trucks that drive up and down this major driveway or street. I guess it's a major highway, because all these big trucks ride on it. And that's that's kind of how we're introduced to Judd Crandall. He's the old man who lives across the street, who has been in the town seemingly his whole life, and he educates the family, the Creeds was their name. He educates the Creeds on the history of the Pet Sematry. And at first, it's where you go to bury your animals, and then it goes into more than that. Then we learned about this ancient burial ground where whatever you bury in that ground will come back. And now, a couple things about that whole thing is, one, the first thing about that is Judd Crandall, who's very much aware by that time what the ground actually is and what actually happens to things that come back once you do bury them up there. There's an old saying that he says over and over again, sometimes dead is better. And that comes from the Pet Sematry series. That's like the ongoing thing. And in this film, we hear it again. So there's that. But here's where the issue is for me, as the person who's watching this. Again, we're going to dissect it piece by piece. First is the plot and the story. I know that this is a prequel to Pet Sematry. I am unclear about which Pet Sematry we're supposed to be following. What I mean by this is we have a contrast of, well, this will also go into the whole, the piece after the casting, which is location and setting and so forth, is because I'm not aware if we're supposed to follow the storyline of the 1989 version with, Craig Gwynn telling the story, or if we're following the 2019 version with John Lithgow. And I am going to make the educated guess that we're going to be following the 2019 version because some of the things that were shown in that film were, had some elements in this one as well. Now, again, this one acts as a prequel to the Pet Sematry movies that we know about. So this is before, the Creeds and before any of that stuff. This is supposedly young Judd Crandall, and the description, first of all, is very misleading. I am going to read you the description again because I want to make sure you understand why I say what I say. Again, I'm blunt and I'm honest, which is why I'm one of the most respected film critics in my area. And I have written many different articles for local newsletters and everything else doing the film reviews because I feel that people should know what they're getting into when they read. So I'm going to read you again what we call the synopsis of the film. In 1969, a young Judd Crandall and his childhood friends band together to confront an ancient evil that has gripped their town of Ludlow. All right, that's the premise. And if you were to listen to that, then you would expect that would be what you would hear, right? Okay. Now, my first issue is both versions of Pet Sematry, when Judd Crandall told the story of... First, he told the story to Lewis, as in the original movie, Pet Sematry, their cat was hit in front of their house. Again, these nasty trucks. I mean, we're going to leave Pet Sematry alone for now because there's plenty of things I can point out about the problems with, some common sense issues like, you are a doctor and you know the dangers of a big major highway and you have two small children and a cat that you let run around all over the place and you feel that is a wise idea. I'm going to ignore that logic, being a husband and a father and someone who takes their safety very seriously. But in the variations of the Pet Sematry, Judd Crandall talks about how his dog, he wasn't ready to say goodbye to his dog and he buried it up the Pet Sematry. And of course, spoiler alert, he didn't quite tell him all of it. He didn't tell him when the dog came back, it wasn't quite the same dog, as it was, growling and angry and whatever else. And there was also this other kind of subplot where it has to be buried, the animal has to be buried by the one who loved them, or the person who cared for them. Whoever buries the animal, or whatever is buried up there, that supposedly that is going to be connected to whatever buries them up there. So in this case, Judd Crandall buried his dog. Judd Crandall buried his dog in this Pet Sematry, in the variation of the Pet Sematry series. Now, in this story, this dog does not belong to Judd Crandall. It belongs to... See, the thing about this movie, it's basically... There is a flashback scene in both movies that takes you back to what this movie is. This movie is telling the story of that flashback scene from both versions of the Pet Sematry. What Judd Crandall tells Louis Creed about his knowledge of the Pet Sematry, about burying the dog, and then of the Army veteran who his dad, wasn't ready to let him go necessarily, and his dad felt bad and buried his son in the Pet Sematry and brought him back, and why it's never a good idea, he was never the same, blah, blah, blah. So that being said, I'm sorry if I just gave you the spoilers, but that's basically what this movie is. This movie is a longer version of that flashback scene, but yet this flashback scene is completely out of order, and it is... switch the narrative. It's no longer Judd Crandall's dog. Now it's the neighbor's dog that is affected. And the neighbor's dog has very minimal airtime. So that's first... Again, we're going to break it down. So the last thing I'm going to say about the plot. Again, if I'm going to understand this is from the 2019 version of Pet Sematry... There's still some continuity issues where I believe in that one, again, it is Judd Crandall's dog that he has buried. And the issue there, again, was, in fact, and again, the issue there was this dog. The dog came back to his owner, and, it was almost like it was rabid, kind of Old Yeller kind of style. This movie... This dog doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the young man who the guy lost, who buried him in the Pet Sematry. So they linked the two things you buried at the same place, same time, is what they did here. But now, they claim that a group of childhood friends band together. And I have to pick this apart because it's not like everyone is aware of what is going on at the same time. That's not the case in this movie. Judd Crandall accidentally finds out. Judd Crandall finds out because he finds the dog, brings the dog back home, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Brings it home to Timmy, which is the name of the soldier. Let's not pretend like we don't know the history of Pet Sematry. Timmy is the name of the soldier who died and that his dad buried him in the Pet Sematry. Now, the names that I mentioned earlier, the ones who played Judd Crandall, I want to point out why it's important for that character to have a bigger... No offense to the actor who portrayed Judd Crandall in this. I'm not picking on the actor. The casting director casted this person, who I'm sure has done plenty of great work, and again, it's not against him, but the people who portrayed Judd Crandall prior are Fred Gwynne and John Lithgow. Those are huge names in Hollywood. Wouldn't it have made sense to have someone who had a name recognizable and a face recognizable to go along with this character of Judd Crandall? And again, in the Pet Sematry series and the genre and the lore of it, early days, he was young when he buried his dog. He was maybe about a 13-year-old, or 12 or 13, he says. Well, in this movie, he's got to be in his 20s, maybe, at least old enough to leave home, because that's the idea. He's going to be the first person to leave Ludlow, and they make a big deal about that. As far as his friends banding together, there's the Native American family, I guess, the one Native American family in the town, who it's unclear what this relationship is. It's also very interesting, the relationship between Judd Crandall and this Native American friend that he has, who apparently feels kind of slighted that Judd is leaving Ludlow without him. I'm not going to lie. There's some undertones. There's some, if you were someone who would read into those kind of interactions, if you would. If you were someone who would read into kind of body language and whatnot, it would almost, like the way the friend responds to Judd leaving with this woman, who is played by Norma, or is Norma in this series. Manny is the name of the Native American who is his friend, supposedly. And Donna is his sister, the Native American sister. So Donna and Manny are brother and sister, which is kind of a weird relationship also. There's no parent in that scenario, on that side of things. There's no mother, father, nothing there. Which I'm a little confused about. They are probably the same age as Judd and Norma. Probably in their 20s, I'm going to guess. Hold on. Oh, excuse me. And also, this is 1969 is when this is supposed to have happened. This series, 1969. All right, 1969. And really what spirals this thing out I'm doing something real quick, folks. Bear with me. All right, 1 second here, folks. Okay. All right, we're going to have some problems here, folks. So, the Vietnam War, for those people. So, in this story, Timmy, who is apparently a childhood friend of this group, which, again, it is one of the awkwardest friends I've ever seen. This interaction with all of these people. None of it makes a lot of clear sense. This Native American friend gives off the feeling that it's more of a romantic thing with him and Judd. Like he's jealous of... I don't know if he's jealous because he's leaving or there's something going on like romantic-wise, because there's some undertones there. There's some weird interactions that feel that. And again, I am not blasting that, and I'm not someone who doesn't condone those things. And if that's going to happen in the movie, that's fine. I don't have any judgment on that. But there needs to be some type of clear message of what this relationship between these two are. And this Timmy, who is supposed to be their friend... Okay, so the Vietnam War went from 1955 to 1965. 1955 to 1975. And this movie is based in 1969. So that means that Timmy had obviously died while in war. Spoiler alert, we already went over the fact that we know who Timmy is based on what we know of the Pet Sematry series. Judd Crandall talks about him in both episodes, in both versions. But these other people are never mentioned in any of Judd's inklings. Manny, there's no real connect. I don't understand. Now we're getting into the casting part of this, by the way. Jackson White, who plays Judd, again, I'm sure he's a nice fellow. He did great with what he had. Natalie Lind as Norma, very minimal role here. Manny Revere, Manny is in this movie quite a bit, the Native American who seems to always be on some type of drug, usually doing marijuana, smoking, and whatnot. And Donna, his sister, who seems to be doing the same things. Anyone who watches horror movies and knows Horror Movie 101 knows if you if you do drugs, if you have sex unprotected, these are written rules in horror that will usually pend your doom. I mean, that's been said in multiple horror movies, and it's been demonstrated in many others. But here's my issue. We're talking about the casting piece. I've already covered the fact that the plot and the storyline is very off, because now we're talking about the casting piece. If you're casting someone to play Judd Crandall, who is the link to the Pet Sematry lore, you need to have someone who is as recognizable as Fred Gwynne or John Lithgow to portray Judd Crandall, because that's an important role. Is the first thing. I don't know how old he's supposed to be in this movie. I'm going to guess like 21, 22s, high school sweethearts, basically. And these people are all the same age, but as far as them banding together, the childhood friends, that is not what is portrayed here in this film. There is a secret in this town. Apparently the town is apparently cursed all of a sudden. The town is, it's not necessarily just the cemetery, it's a whole town has something wrong with it, apparently. Even though in any of the Pet Sematry lore, the only people who are affected by anything that has to do with that are the people who are buried in the Pet Sematry, or those who bury people or things in the Pet Sematry. Outside of those people, not a lot of people care too much, nor do they, poke the bear, so to speak, no pun intended. And I also have to say, whenever you're casting a film like this, when it's important to have those connections and have those kind of relationships, it's important to have that star power behind you. Granted. Now, Jackson White, as I said, I don't know him well. I don't know what else he's done. I'm not going to look it up right now because we're going to focus on this movie because that's what we have to go by. And again, the people who portrayed their roles did their roles, but they don't really fit with this narrative. But then you have Henry Thomas, who, famous for E.T., and, there's been many things that Henry Thomas has done very well, and he's a very recognizable name. Henry Thomas associated with E.T., and he's been associated with other things as well. I believe he's done other Stephen King adaptations as well, Henry Thomas. He's a very seasoned actor, playing Dan Crandall, who is the father of Judd. And we see him quite a bit in this movie, but he's a secondary character. That could be portrayed by anybody, really, because he has the history behind the history, I suppose. If I'm going to say someone did the best job, I guess Jack Mulhern, who played Timmy, who is, again, the young man who came back, so to speak. He did okay in his role as Timmy, as far as what it could do. David Duchovny as his dad. So David Duchovny from the X-Files, which is sci-fi, not necessarily horror. And I'm not picking on David Duchovny. What I'm saying is, you spent the money to get David Duchovny and Henry Thomas, who are recognizable names, who, in all honesty, these are people who would be a Judd Crandall in another lifetime telling the story. But yet these are supporting characters who are barely in the film. David Duchovny is barely in this film. But the person who we're really supposed to follow, the person who we're supposed to care about, the person who, in a lot of ways, is narrating this story is Judd Crandall, who is virtually an unknown. And prior to this, Judd Crandall is one of the most recognizable characters in the series. Both of them. I mean, if you look at Pet Sematry, I mean, yes, now we know the Denise Crosbys and the Dale Metcalfs, the Miko Hughes of those films. But everyone knows Fred Gwynne. Everyone knows John Lithgow. John Lithgow might have been the biggest name out of the 2019 version. And I'm not saying that the people in that movie didn't do a good job with what they had. I actually think the girl who was in Pet Sematry did a fantastic job in the new remake. And I'm probably one of the only people that actually didn't mind the remake, which is why I'm having to believe that this is a storytelling of that series, not the original, as was advertised. As far as them banding together to fight an ancient evil, they don't really know much about this ancient evil. But the casting of this movie seems like they spent a lot of money on bringing in these two big supporting actors. And this is told through Judd Crandall's eyes, and we're seeing Judd Crandall live these things. So why aren't we getting someone that is just as right? I'm not picking on Jackson White. I'm sure he's a very talented actor, but being compared to a Henry Thomas or a David Duchovny, why is Judd Crandall, who is should be the most important person in this whole thing, not a bigger name, not someone who is instantly recognizable? You should look at the actor and say right away, that is who is important. And Judd Crandall in this one, there's really not a lot of backstory, and for some reason, there's a lot of southern drawls going on in this movie. This is set in Maine, which is in New England, and there is a very distinct New England accent that is not a southern accent, by the way. There's very much a difference. Yes, there is a dialect that goes along in New England. It is not anywhere close to what the southern drawl is. And apparently, the people in this film seem to have a southern drawl that is present in New England. I mean, if you were to go to Boston and listen to someone from Boston, I am from New England, and I am originally from Boston. And if I was to say, y'all did this and y'all did that and whatnot, you would think I was from the South now, wouldn't you? But it wouldn't really fit with the dialect if I'm supposed to be in Maine, in New England. And, of course, this is old school Maine, which is going to bring us to our next thing, is location and time period and continuity. All right, this movie starts off very dark. There's not a lot seen. Now, a lot of people might say, well, sometimes not seeing in the dark is a good thing. As it creates the intrigue and it creates the fear. It lets the audience use their imagination. And I'm all for that. But if you're the audience and you're supposed to see something on the screen that is going to be vital for the rest of the project, or the rest of the film, that is going to be important down the road, the fans, the audience needs to see whatever that is. You can have whatever you want in the darkness. You can tell whatever folklore you want. You can leave the audience to their imagination all you want, except for if you're going to use it to be a telling point to the rest of the story. That can't be dark. That has to be seen by the audience. I mean, a good example is M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. All right? A lot of people love it or hate it, but the continuity, what M. Night Shyamalan does in that film is everything's bright, and he tells different... There's a color thing, right? Anyone who's ever watched The Sixth Sense, ever watched the backstory of how The Sixth Sense was made, or M. Night Shyamalan explaining that it was very important for people to see the red in certain scenes because that would indicate some type of feeling. And you know what? It pops up. Every time there's something impactful in that scene, red something is associated within that frame, within that scene, to bring that powerful scene up, to know that something is going on. This film is dark in the beginning, and we really can't see who's being affected anywhere. In the beginning of this, we have the voiceover by Judd Crandall telling the older Judd Crandall telling the story. Sometimes dead is better. And we are automatically, taken to supposedly 1969 Bangor, Maine. I'm sorry to tell whoever did the continuity here, but Bangor, Maine is not a southern town. It might be a quiet, mountain. It might be a quiet New England town. There are many of those, but even in 1969, there's no. This film is supposed to be set in 1969. Feels more like it's in the 50s or 40s in some places, and in other places in modern time. And we are referencing the effects of the Vietnam War that was taking place. As again, Timmy was a victim of this, that we don't go a great deal. And we're not also explained, necessarily what happened to Timmy, unless that is in the dark parts that we didn't get to see in the opening of this film. We don't know who's buried, and we don't know who's getting, whatever else. We are introduced to Judd, and we're supposed to care about Judd. And I don't know, he is moving on. He's going somewhere. They say, they all talk about how Judd Crandall has done something impactful, and he's moving on to something. But there is no indication of what it is that is helping him leave the town. He's not married yet to Norma, who is his girlfriend in this series. In fact, they kind of decided at the last minute to leave together. It's kind of a thrown together thing, the Norma thing. She just kind of decides to go with him. So there's no backstory to why Judd Crandall's leaving and what he's leaving for. Did he get a job? Did he get drafted to a football game? No. They're talking in the movie. They make inklings to people who are drafted to, the war, or drafted to make the draft. Back when you had to, they told you when you had to go to war. And his name wasn't on the list, and I guess he gets to leave. But where is he leaving to? Why is he leaving? Is he a football player? Is he a sports athlete somehow? There's nothing ever shown about that. There's nothing that talks about any athletics or academics. He doesn't seem like the brightest bulb in the bunch. So I don't exactly know what Judd Crandall, why he's leaving the town to begin with, other than, hey, I'm old enough to leave, so I guess I will. And, basically in the movie, they try to put the thing that Henry Thomas is trying to get him out of there to, quote, save his life. And if that's the case, and Henry Thomas is trying to save his son and whatnot, does that mean that Henry Thomas knew what already happened? And there's some really bad continuity issues with timing and displacement. A lot of, sometimes there's some certain scenes that are there just to be there to give the creep factor. There's a scene where, this isn't ruining anything to tell you that there's a scene with a certain rodent that is already obviously not alive, and apparently Timmy, who's already been established to be gone, hits the rodent that's already gone. But we don't see what happens to it, nor do we, I guess, we care. So there's that. There's just a lot of continuity issues, timing issues, and just the dialects of the characters, all of them. Now, you could say that, some of these people might have, a different dialect if they just came to the town. Or some of these people might, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, The accent in New England is a very distinct accent. Listen to my accent. This is a New England accent. And if you listen to the dialect used in this film, I know people from Maine, and I got news for you. It's not too far from this one. A little bit slower. They do tend to talk a little slower than us, but for the most part, it's the exact same dialect as this. Unless these characters are trying to say that the Southern accent and the New England accent are the same thing, it's not the case. And New England does not look or resemble the South. And this film seems to always be the summer. There's no winter, apparently. I got news for you. Maine is very cold in general. It's very close to Canada. Maine tends to be a little cooler to the most part. A lot more darker days in Maine than there are in a lot of New England towns. But yeah, sure, it can get sunny and stuff like that. It's very picturesque. But there's a winter. In this movie, I guess there's no winter. So there's some continuity issues, and I don't know how long after any of this is supposed to take place that all of these things were to follow. It's just a lot of that. So let's go to the last little piece, and that's the final part of my evaluation. That's the feeling at the end of the movie. Okay. I'm going to risk you guys laughing at me. But in order for you to understand this, I'm going to be honest, as I always am. The original Pet Sematry in 1989, there were characters, there was a feel to it that I, to this day, still can't have an issue watching. Does it scare me, or am I afraid of it? Maybe not afraid of the whole movie itself, but there are characters in the movie that whenever they're on screen, I am uncomfortable. I don't enjoy looking at the characters, the detail, the makeup work. I don't enjoy looking at some of the characters in the original Pet Sematry in 1989. As a kid, they freaked me out. As an adult, I still have issue looking at them in some parts. I'm older now, and I can, even after film school or whatever else, I understand it as that aspect, so I am able to, do that. So that is kind of what the original film sets the tone for me, right? Pet Sematry 2, and I have to bring that one up just because, everyone else is going to ignore it like it's, not part of the thing. But in fact, it is part of the Pet Sematry lore. That is a movie that I can watch. It doesn't really affect me as much as part one. Okay, so first part of Pet Sematry, 1989, that left a longing impression on me. For a little while, I had nightmares and stuff like that. I'm not ashamed to tell you guys that. The 2019 version of Pet Sematry, now I'm an adult, I'm older, I understand how things work. It did not freak me out as much as 1989. Sure, there are some things that are creepy. Because remember, I have to understand that's a retelling of the original movie that did make an impact on me. I have to say that the 2019 version was creepy and had a very dark ending. Probably better than the original, if I'm being honest. But this one, that is supposed to be a prequel, that's supposed to set the tone for all of this other stuff. I'm sorry, but this did not leave any lasting impression. Last week I talked about movies that I think are overrated because I can watch them at any part of the day. They don't have any kind of a feeling for them. For example, The Exorcist, I find to be one of the funniest movies ever made. There's a lot of dialogue in the movie. There's a lot of scenes that are way over the top that I find humor and I get chuckles out of. I have a weird sense of humor, I guess. Of course, I understand the gratitude and the gravity of everything involved in it and whatever else, but if you're someone who's not really into that whole Exorcist thing and you're not affected by that stuff, then the rest of it kind of falls apart. Now, in this film, because I had such respect for the original Pet Sematry, the original one, 1989, versus this one, I have to ask the question, what happened? We live in a day, in an era, where, I mean, in 1989, most of those things were all practical effects. For the most part, practical effects. Here we are, 2023, this film was made and released. You have all of these various different tools and guidelines and whatever else, makeup and who knows what else. I didn't have any issues with looking at any of these people. None of these characters stand out as far as being, oh, that's a creepy looking person. I don't like the makeup on that. The Timmy, who is supposed to be this basically a glorified zombie, he's not overly impressive. He should be the pro. I mean, if I'm making this film and I want to freak people out, I'm going to make Timmy as grotesque, as scary, and nasty as possible. That's not here. Sorry. So the feeling at the end of this, for me, was just, I'm reminded of how I was growing up. I'm also reminded myself of how I feel about the original Pet Sematry. Some people laugh at me. Some people don't find the original Pet Sematry very freaky at all. I personally think out of any movie right now, out of any horror movie, that's got to be one of the freakiest things I can't watch. There is a movie that I absolutely cannot watch, and it's not a horror movie. It's just the freakiest movie. Maybe at some other point I'll talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. And no, I'm not talking about Stephen King's It. That's a great movie. I don't mind that. Fantastically done. But I'm talking about another film that I can't watch because it's so upsetting and so just jarring. I can never sit through it again. I'm regretful that I sat through it the first time. It's not a horror movie, folks. But this Pet Sematry Bloodlines, listen, you tried. And at the end of the day, what failed? What did we lose? Was it the casting? Was it did we care about Judd Crandall that much? Was he someone we really care about? He's kind of whiny through most of this movie, and there's never been, in this series, he's portrayed as this stoic individual, but in this movie, he's kind of whiny. And I don't know what his friend Manny's issue with him is, what the obsession is there. To me, it seems like there's a jealousy there. I mean, I was making breakfast at the time when I was watching it, so maybe I was distracted for 2 minutes, and there was some type of a story or some type of scene that I must have missed when I was flipping an egg that explained that relationship and how they're all friends. And basically, the only thing that makes these people or connects these people, they live in the same little small town. And I think people who lived in a town like that can probably understand that aspect. But that does not mean you're all friends. There are certainly people I grew up with who are from my hometown I wouldn't want to hang around with. There are people in my own family I grew up with that I wouldn't want to hang around with and be associated with. So what is it about Ludlow that makes everyone want to be friendly with everyone else? They don't seem like the friendliest bunch either, if I'm being honest. They treat Ludlow like a southern town, and again, it's supposed to be set in Maine. It's not. It's not Maine. It's not the South. It's lost a lot of things for me. I was a little disappointed because I don't also know what I was going to get into, but the fact that the original Pet Sematry to me hits all the buttons and tells such a better story than this, a little disheartening. In the 2019 version, Ethan, I'll give that a pass. I thought it was daring, and I thought it was a good idea, and I thought it told a different kind of a story that made a little bit more sense. And this one just feels like, okay, we're going to have a prequel to this story that we all know about, and basically make a longer version of the flashback scene from both Pet Sematries. But we're going to ignore anything that we did prior and tell it in a different way. Instead of him being a 10-year-old kid who lost his dog and wanted to, have a little bit more time, now he's a whiny guy who's trying to run away from town, who's apparently his dad's trying to help him duck the draft or something. it's just a lot of political stuff in this that doesn't need to be there. It goes over everyone's head. And it doesn't need to be in a horror movie like this. So, yeah, that's the Pet Sematry review. Sorry, but at the end of the day, it fails. It fails to deliver what it should have failed. It should have done. You should be freaked out, I guess. You should be a little uncomfortable watching the movie. You should have a little bit of fear. Yeah, there's a couple like jumps and some gore, but you know what? Because of modern day movies and because we've seen everything these days, we're a little desensitized to that stuff. There was nothing over the top in this. There was nothing we haven't seen 1,000 times. People who are familiar with the Pet Sematry brand and the story and the folklore and all that, I don't think you're going to like this one as much as you think you might. Or maybe you will. But I myself found it a little unfulfilling and a little bit flat, I guess you'd say. Sometimes dead is better, and sometimes it's best not to remake movies or do prequels to movies that didn't do well to begin with. Maybe that's a lesson to learn here. All right, Ants, take us to our next segment, please, and thank you.
Unsuspecting stranger had better know the truth of wrong from right. 'Cause the eyes of the ranger are upon you. Any wrong you do, he's gonna see. When you're in Texas, look behind you. 'Cause that's where the ranger's gonna
be. Yep. Look at that. I found intro music for shoutouts. What a great shoutout music, huh? Of course, sung and performed by the man who inspired one of the martial arts that I am trained in, Chun Kudu, the master of Chun Kudu, the founder of Chun Kudu, and the legendary Chuck Norris. Anyway, folks, I just want to acknowledge a few things and congratulate some people on some big victories over the weekend. I want to say congratulations to Ryder Lockwood, who over the weekend had added to his winning streak, winning yet another tournament this weekend. We're very proud of Ryder, and we're proud of all of his work, and he has done a fantastic job. You want to talk about a hard worker? He's all over the place in sports. He's always, getting ready for judo today, getting ready for workout today, gonna go to baseball today. This kid's always on the move, always working hard, does take time to have fun with his friends, take some time in the pool and all that stuff. But you know what? Ryder Lockwood right now is really living what Dream Masters are about. People who work hard for their goals and are putting the work in. And Ryder Lockwood puts that work in and proves it right here this weekend. So last weekend, Ryder Lockwood again, 2 weekends in a row, has won a tournament, and we're very proud of Ryder. We're proud of all of our people. And, I wanted to take a moment also to recognize that, one of the things when you're training in martial arts, or when you get to a different level, when you're in a different different knowledge cap, if you would, or a different level than everybody else. If you are someone who is seasoned, as we say, in a certain sport or whatever else, it should be your responsibility or your duty to want to help the newer people and want to take and embrace those people who are just starting out. We do that, one, to show continuity and unity within the realm of our dojo or center or whatever or gym, whatever you guys call your things. But also the reason you do that is to keep the sport alive, to show them, to keep the interest going, and to keep the sport, whatever it is whatever the dream is, alive. whether it be martial arts or football / soccer or whatever the case may be, taking a moment to take someone who is just kind of dipping their feet in the water is a good thing for someone who's been around a little longer. It kind of goes along with being a leader, showing that leadership skill. And over the week, I just saw, recently, I saw the Adele boys who are taking time to help train the kids in their gym where they train. Who better to show people how to elevate and how to be, the performers that you are than have some of the best athletes in the country helping to bring in this culture. I mean, I saw that and I thought that is exactly what a leader should do. That is exactly the champion's role. Because ultimately, a world champion, there are things that you have to... being a champion, you have to hold yourself at a different level than everybody else. There are a few things that a champion should be prepared for, and a few things that a champion should be doing, and there are things that should be expected of a champion. If you're thinking that, by winning a championship, your work is done, oh, well, I got a championship, my life is all set, then you are not ready to be a champion. There is more to being a champion than winning a title or winning a gold medal or winning some type of belt. There is more to being a champion than just winning a match or holding a title. One, you have to be aware that everyone should be gunning for you. It doesn't matter what the sport is. It doesn't matter if it's martial arts or any other sport. If you have some type of title, then you should expect that someone is going to want to take that from you, whether it be a record or a championship or a title or a gold medal or whatever the case may be. You become the measuring stick of your sport or your genre or whatever it is. So, one is we got to be realistic, and if you are a champion, you should be ready to defend against anyone, anytime, anywhere. That's the first thing. And in all honesty, because of that, you should be outworking everybody at your gym, your dojo, and anywhere else that you are. You got to live that from the time you leave the dojo or your center to the time you get home. The time you leave the field to the time you get off the field. You live the championship way on and off the field. In and off the mat. Or in and out of the ring. I know this. I've held many titles. I've been a champion in many different things. I was someone who took pride in a lot of those things. Do I have a lot of those gold medals and titles that I won when I was a younger person? I don't. I told the story due to my mother's boyfriend who did not like the fact that I was successful as I was. And due to the fact that alcohol was involved and he burned my room down. And we lost my titles and everything else that was in our house. That's a real story, folks. But guess what? I don't make excuses for that. I don't look at that like, oh, lost just, what am I going to do now? You see, the titles, the gold medals, and all that stuff, they're nice to look at. But it's the respect and how you hold yourself that makes you a champion. Titles and gold medals and all that, they're nice to look at. And I was proud of what I had. And I was the only one in my family to have such things. But you know what? When they were gone, I was upset. But in the same sense, as my sensei said, it's not the titles that make you the champion. It's you, the respect you get from the people who step on the mat with you, the people who watch you, the people who support you, your dojo, your sensei, all of us. We make you a champion, not the title or the gold medal or whatever it is that you are getting. That made me feel a little bit better. But in all honesty, there is nothing I like better than helping to elevate others. I like to be able to give people pointers. I like to be able to tell people this is what you're going to have to do. In all honesty, passing that knowledge down to someone who might not have it is ultimately another responsibility that a champion has. If you're a champion, your goal should be to elevate everyone who's underneath you. Whether it be you being the champion, defending it against everyone who's underneath you, and that way, making everyone work harder to take that title from you, or it's showing people, giving people the knowledge they need to be as successful as yourself. Over the weekend, not only was it an Adele, it was the Hammer who was showing people how to, taking time with these young students, showing them the ways that he and his brothers have trained. They are absolute beasts, and it is great to see that kind of leadership out of people. So I just want to acknowledge that and tell you how important that is to be able to elevate others who are around you. Now, this week has been a very busy week for me, this past weekend. I have added people to the icons of the F4L, and I'm preparing for Monster Mania coming up tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. I leave for Monster Mania. And I'm going to be pretty much not around for a couple days. So I just want to let you also know, by saying that, unfortunately, I am not 100% certain if there will be a show on Friday, as much as I would love them to be. But what I might do is have something prepared for you guys in the meantime. Because Fridays will be the Dream Masters BA MMA division on display, and a lot of those current stars, the new stars, will be featured on there as well. So that should be pretty epic. And going forward, Thursday nights, because yes, there's wrestling on Thursday nights too, because it seems to be wrestling every night now. But on Thursday nights, we will have something called Green Masters Classics, where I will revisit classic wrestling and revisit some of the legends of wrestling who have paved the way for all of us in pro wrestling. As someone who has such great respect to people who have come before me, and someone who's not afraid to ask guidance or learn something new, and to be open to learning something from someone who's been around longer than me, I think that there should be no shame in learning a new skill, learning something you didn't know before. I am constantly learning about a business I've done for 20 plus years, and I'm still learning about the business that I love. And people have asked me, Jazz, we heard you're going to go back into pro wrestling. What is it about the wrestling that makes you want to get back in there? You're 44 years old. Are you sure you want to step back into that ring? More than ever. And why do I want to go back in the ring? Well, this is going to be hard to explain to someone who has not felt it before. But I'm certain that some of the athletes we've talked about on this show, some of the athletes have talked about on this show, is that adrenaline rush you get when you hear a live crowd. Actually, I think way back in the day, Walker Campbell talked about that same rush he gets when he gets on stage and he does performance. He lives on that crowd, right? Philip Ricardo Jr., the natural bodybuilding champion, he also feels alive on the stage. JoJo the bodybuilder said something similar, and he's also competed on stage. By the way, I'm going to point out again, JoJo the bodybuilder is the only person who is in the United States currently who can say he is a bodybuilder. You can pose all you want. You can take all the pictures you want. JoJo the bodybuilder is the only bodybuilder by name because he's actually competed in bodybuilding. If you want to call yourself Workout Jim or Fitness Tom, that's fine. But you can't call yourself something you're not. Especially if that's not even and I'm going to tell you this, I've actually asked a few people who, are into this fitness world, what is your goal? What are you trying to get out of this? They don't even know what they want to do with it. They don't know if they want to be a fitness person or a model or a bodybuilder. So what are you doing it for? What's the end goal? What's that going to get you? Jojo the bodybuilder can claim to be a bodybuilder. You know why? Because he's actually competed to be a bodybuilder. He's competed as one. Someday, if he wants to do it, he's going to do it again. He's playing football right now. From what I understand, he's doing a pretty good job at that too. He's constantly working, that young man. You got to have respect for that, because you know why he's always working at it? Because he knows that's how you get it done. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't witch and moan. He doesn't say, "Oh, look at me." He goes out there and gets it done every single day. And that's why we respect him as we do. Now, we have other people who are in tremendous shape. All of our athletes on our show, tremendous conditioning, tremendous athletes in their own right. That's why we have respect for them. That's why I predict these are the people who are the future of each of their sports. Facts on that. I gave a list a number of weeks ago of the people who are going to be future UFC champions. I don't know if you realize this. Since I put that list out, well, two things have happened since I put that list out. One, each of those people have lived up to that name. Every single one of them, since I said those names, and I'm getting the emails, and I see the results, they are performing at a level that they are on the trajectory to being the next UFC champions, if they choose to be. Before that, they were going to do so. I said they were going to do so, and they continue to prove me correct. The Action Jackson Bakers, the Dmitry Chenkrovs, the Ryder Lockwoods, the Adele Boys, the Menya Boys, the Grayson Russells of the world, the Isaiah Trenyas of the world. All of them are some of the toughest people in the United States. Noah, the Nightmare Tyndall, and Anthony Demowicz over there in the UK, the Redheaded Terror as they call them. Those are two of the toughest young men out of Liverpool. Noah has a fight coming up. I can't wait to see it, because Noah's a legitimate athlete. Noah's a legitimate fighter. We have seen Noah. We've known Noah. We support Noah because he's legitimately who he says he is. He's not a pretend wannabe champion. He's a defending champion, and apparently he likes to ruffle feathers because he's hardcore, because he puts the work in, because he is who he says he is. He lives up to the name, a Nightmare. He has a fight coming up with another young man who has all kinds of accolades that people make out to be something big. I hope Noah comes on this show before that fight, because I can't wait to talk with Noah about what he thinks of this young man. He's seen the young man. I'm sure they were actually in the same competition against other people that day. And I got to tell you, it's going to be a different story when that kid steps in the ring with the Nightmare, Noah Tyndall. And I'm going to predict right now, Noah is going to retain his title, and someone else is going to learn a little bit of humility, in my opinion. And yeah, I just said that. So yeah, that's the thing there. And, you just have to take some time to acknowledge the people who are around you. Acknowledge the people who are doing important things and are making goals and dreams happen by their own accord, putting the work in. Jaden Brooks, right, one of the smartest young men I know, he's still continuing to work on being the best version of him. And he's openly said he's not a fitness model, he's not a bodybuilder, he just wants to be healthy. What respect you have to have for that. He's a very wise young man, and he's going to go far in the business world because he chooses to do so. I could sit here and talk about everyone who's an icon of the F4L all day, because I am proud of every single one of them. Over the years, I've stopped hanging around, talking to people. I've, basically deleted people or unfollowed people who were not respectful, who didn't understand something, or people who just flat out don't fit the model, if I'm being honest. And in that time, there are other people who I've given that opportunity to, who have risen to that every time. This past week, I'm going to tell you a story. It's not a long one. I had said at the beginning of this month on Instagram, I had made a general post about how if I can't celebrate you and I can't, say nice things about you and tag you in something that I'm going to say something nice about you, I can't continue to follow you. Because if you can't see what I'm saying about you, why would you care, and why would anyone else care as well? It looks strange when I'm shouting people out who don't even know I'm shouting them out. That's weird. Well, this week I had to make some very tough decisions, and I've had to actually cut ties with people who I have so much respect for. And it's not because I don't like them. It's not because I don't respect them. It's not because I don't believe in them. I do. But you see, I said at the beginning of this month, if I can't communicate with you, I can't continue to follow and pretend and just be a number. I'm not a number, people. I'm someone who believes in you. And I will do everything that I can to make sure you glow and to make sure you succeed in your goals. Because I have succeeded in a lot of my goals, and I want to see you guys do the same. So I said that, and unfortunately, I went to offer some words of encouragement. I went to congratulate someone, and wouldn't you know it, I still can't comment or can't respond. And it was that moment when I said, well, and this particular person I have reached out to many times to see if it was an issue. At one point they did follow, and then they just unfollowed, and I know they've had issues with Instagram in the past. And the reason I'm not saying their name is because as of right now, ever since I unfollowed, I'm going to move on and give that credit to someone who does reciprocate that respect. And again, I feel bad because I believed in that person, and I still do. But if I'm not, if you're not into the whole me spreading positivity and being the bully buster that I am and all those things, if that's not your thing, then hey, that's okay. That's your issue, not mine. There are many people who do appreciate what I do for them, and I want to thank all of those people who do. This week, as I was going through all those people who do support what I do and do support each other, for those people who don't know, on Instagram, I usually thank everyone for following me. And if you notice, I don't have as many followers as I follow others. I know that just sounds weird, right? I follow more people who follow me, in other words. And to be honest with you, if I could, start over with the whole thing, I would have. I would rather unfollow everybody who isn't. If I had it my way, I would unfollow everyone who's not following me, because clearly, I'm giving you words. There are people who do not follow me who appreciate things that I say to them, and appreciate the words of wisdom, whatever else, who still don't feel that I am worthy to celebrate them because I'm not either fitting their model, I'm not, or that maybe I'm too nice, or maybe because I actually communicate. I keep everything professional, folks. I keep everything on the level because you need to have that, first of all, and it's all professional for me. I support people's goals and dreams because that's something that I believe in. I believe in people, and I also believe in safety on social media. Unfortunately, there are not as many nice people out there. And trust me, I've seen that because I'm the one who makes sure those people who are not safe on social media are reported. Yeah, I'll be the one to say that. I don't condone those things. I like to keep everything on the up and up. I'm all about people who want to have a good time and have a good laugh. But if you're going to be disrespectful, you're going to be weird, you're going to be a creep, you're out. And what you don't know is one of the reasons why I have so little people who follow me is because if someone sends off a vibe and I feel off about something, I'm just going to unfollow and block. That's it. Because what you don't understand is, or what you probably do understand, is I take the people who I support very seriously. And those who believe enough in me, I protect their integrity, and I want to make sure they're, utmost. I don't want someone to follow me just so they can, do some crazy things and reach out to people whom I have a relationship with because I believe in them. And it's not the same thing. I go and I support everything, and everything is on the up and up, and everything's professional. There are people who are not me who do these things, and it's not healthy or anything else. So be wary is what I'm saying there. But this week I had to do some very painful things, and I basically unfollowed people and basically let them go, if you would. Gave them time to, whatever it is. And two of these people are people I've known for a long time. And, it's unfortunate. But, hey, things happen, right? And if they were to follow me, I'd probably follow them back. But, I'm not going to hold my breath because there's plenty of other people out there who do. And then, out of nowhere, this is what's funny to me. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, folks. I have so many people. There are many people, as you guys know, who I try to offer words of encouragement to or whatever else. And sometimes there may be people who I miss an accomplishment. I know. How could that be? Well, I saw an accomplishment by someone who had done well in one of the tournaments, and I congratulated them. On their victory and told them how sorry I was I missed it. But, congratulations and good for you. Keep up the great work. And they proceeded to tell me to go myself. And to that, simply, well, that's the end of that one, I guess, because that was uncalled for, nor was unworthy, and nor was it funny. So someone who has apparently been following me for years or a while, I said congratulations to, because I was late to congratulate them, or they felt I don't know what the problem was, to be honest. I really don't. I don't know if they got insulted because I'm just acknowledging them now, and there are other people who I did, or maybe because I didn't put them on the list of the future UFC champions. But you know what? Listen, that can be adapted. And you know what? I'm going to say this. I went through the Rolodex of the people who do follow me. There are a lot of people on that list who legitimately could be UFC champions or any other champions they choose to be. They could be Oscar winners. They could be writers. They could be dancers of the year. They could be whatever they want to be. And I support them all in their individual goals. They could be the next David Beckham. They could be the next, what's his name? Charo. They could be the next Christy Romero, right? Is that his name? Yeah. Well, you know what? My friends are better than any of them anyway, because they're genuine human beings. And I support genuine people, because that's what I am. But, that goes to talk about the fact that not everyone understands what I do and why I do it. So, let's bring it back to the last piece of this show. Ants. Folks, this past week I have, as I said priorly in the last episode, in the last piece, I guess you'd say, I had said how I had, basically ended friendships or unfollowed people who I, at one time, very much believed in. And I still do believe in, but, things happen, whatever. But here's something I want to say and want to point out. When it comes to bullying, I am never okay with bullying, and no one is ever going to get bullied under my watch. Yesterday, as you guys know, I am someone who takes safety and people very seriously. I live the F4L way with love, care, and compassion, understanding and respect for each other's differences. That is the F4L way. Some of you guys may know that I do stand-up comedy, and I do a lot of public speaking about anti-bullying and so forth, and I take a lot of pride in that. Last night I recently got into a conversation with someone about an up-and-rising comedian who is a very young man who is just, breaking into the whole stand-up comedy thing. You know what? I think he might be even better than me right now at the stand-up comedy. I'm going to be honest with you. And unfortunately, I was told that he is another person who is, suffered with people giving him a hard time and, being bullies and whatever. And you know what? Never, ever, ever will someone get bullied under my watch. And never will someone be treated with anything but respect on this show or integrity or everything else, because everyone deserves to be themselves. Everyone has their own goals, dreams, and I think it's important for us to support each other to get those goals and dreams made. Whether you want to be the next Bruce Lee, or you want to be the next David Beckham, whether you want to be the next Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't know, whoever you guys like in Hollywood these days. Whether you want to be the next Elvis Presley, dare to dream, but put the work in and getting it done. And I want to say again that whenever you see someone who is giving someone else a hard time, whether it be on social media or in real life, if you are just sitting there, or you do this new thing which you pull out your cell phone and record the thing as if that is somehow going to help the issue, you're not. You're just adding to the issue. If you really want to make a difference, you will do what you need to do, and that's step in when you need to. And it's important for you to do that, because you might be the difference when it comes down to it. I taught both my kids, to respect, obviously live the F4L way, and they do. But I also told them never to be bystanders in a situation when they see something wrong. If they see something wrong, never to be afraid to speak up, because I will always support them. And if anyone ever sees something wrong and feels the need to speak up and use their voice, I urge you guys to do that. Don't be a bystander. Stop with the stupid cell phone stuff. You're not adding to an issue. You're not adding to helping the situation. You're adding to the opposite. If you're pulling out a cell phone, it better be to call 911 or call someone who can help the situation, because clearly if your first response is to grab your cell phone if someone is hurting someone else, and your first response is to pick up a cell phone, then you better be calling some type of emergency or someone to help the situation, not pulling out and recording it, because that's a lame thing to do. And you don't look like a cool guy. You look like a coward when you do that. You're just adding to the issue. If you see someone who is mistreating someone else, speak up and do something. Stand up and do something. You're hearing from someone who has literally lived this his entire life. I have always been the bully buster, and I always will. I have always been the voice of the voiceless. I have always been the person who will step in when no one else will. Being a leader is not easy, because you are expected to perform at the top level. You're expected to make decisions that will affect you and those around you. Being a role model isn't easy either. But you see, nowadays, there are kind of two kinds of people you can follow. You can follow the ones who make themselves look like fools and make lots of money doing it. Or you can follow the right people who are doing good things every day and making an impact and making the world a better place. Like someone I mentioned recently, Elijah Richardson out of Australia, our friend from down under, who is doing his part to make the world a better place by helping the oceans and and using his influence and his voice to bring awareness to conservation of the ocean and the beaches and so forth. And other people out there who are affected by trying to be themselves and achieve their goals, and people have to torment and be mean to them. So all the people out there who have social media, who have all of these followers and all these people and whatnot, ask yourself, why are they following me? And are these really people who are there for me or something else? I am always respectful, and I will always keep things on the up and up. I will always be professional, and I am honest. It's a rare thing. I am blunt. If you ask me a question, be ready for the answer. I'll give it to you. It might not be something you'll want to hear, much like if you ask me what my favorite film is, or and why I like such things. So, folks, remember that you can make a difference in the life of someone else just by interjecting yourself or just by using your voice. So the next time you see someone who's having a hard time, or you see someone who is being mistreated or being misled, use your voice and speak up and do something. Don't just sit there with your phones. Thank you on that. And to all those people out there who, I got to also take this moment here to address something I've been very, very openly against, something I'm very much... I'm against some of this, and I'm also supportive of some. So I want to explain that. What I'm talking about is the people who are on social media and use it as, I don't know, a source of fame. Recently, there's been people who have, who are on YouTube specifically, families on YouTube who have been, doing horrendous things to their own family. And I think it's important to point out, not every family on YouTube are the same. Not every family on social media is the same. I think it's important to look at each case individually and not label everyone together as if it's everyone's issue. Because there are some very wholesome, nice families also. There are some people who just like to spend time with their family. And as someone who also enjoys my time with my family, I support people who play games and like to dance and have fun with their family. I think that's great. I think it's healthy. As long as everyone's happy and everyone's enjoying it, it's cool. Because ultimately, it's okay to have fun with your family. But, I don't think it's a good idea, to go to the lengths of some of these other people who have been all over the social media who use this as a way to income their own things and become famous in their own selves. And there are lists of everyone who I'm addressing. There's lists of those families who just shouldn't be not only on social media, they just shouldn't be around in society. They shouldn't be allowed to have families to begin with, social media or not. But I think it's important to understand that each family is individual and everyone's different. It's not the same. And not all families are equal, if that makes any sense. I know the family, or I know of the family whom everyone has heard about, and this is something that's been seemingly been going on forever, but I want to point out, shame on everyone for not doing anything sooner. The fact that everyone's doing the I told you so's now, but no one did the let me do something now thing, that is disgusting. But on the same sense, when it comes to kids' safety, I am one of the most overprotective fathers out there, and I'll be the first to admit, you want to get me in a bad mood, go do something about say something or do something to my family, and you're going to be hearing about it from me, not so much anywhere else. I am old school, so do not make the mistake of bringing my family into any issues you may have with me, because I'm not nice then. When it comes to the safety of my family and the people who I consider to be family, I take that very serious. And I think it's deplorable when there are people like this family who have clearly lost the idea of what a family is. I think they're all disgusting. I think it's disgusting that no one did anything sooner. I did not follow that family because, one, there are plenty of nice, good families who I do support, who I know are not like this. So I think it's important to realize that as much as we want to support each other and support our goals and whatever else, I think it's important to realize that everyone's different and not everyone's created the same, and not everyone has the same intentions, and not everyone has the same motives. A family that I do enjoy, hold on, let's see if they... Oh, I missed it live, I think. There's a family, actually, that is apparently dealing with the issue where people are accusing them of being one of those, and that's just not the truth. That's not real, folks. They are not the same as this other family who they're claiming they are similar to. That's despicable. Let me give you... I'm going to tell you who they are. Give me a second. The people who I do support, by the way, I do believe in them, and I think they're fantastic human beings. I'm just addressing something real quick. Get back to that person after. One second, folks. Oh, I guess I missed it. Well, the Misner family, apparently people are being rude to them, The Misners are one of the nicer, cooler families. They like to dance with their family. They like to do a lot of cool dance videos, and they enjoy each other's time and whatever else. You know what? And apparently people are, looking at them like this other family. That's not the same people. Come on. The Misners are actually a really cool family. They spend time together. They dance together. You might have seen them all over the place. They dance and they genuinely have fun with each other. It's not... They're not forcing anyone to do anything or anything like that, like this other family. And apparently there's this witch hunt that other people who are miserable in their own lives have to sit there and look at a family that just likes to dance and have a good time together. You look at that and look at the negative in that. That's not on them. That's on the person who wants to see something that's not there. So, we offer our support to the Misners. I think they're a fantastic family. I think they're okay. Your New Zealand family, I think, are decent people, too. They're over there in New Zealand, and they like to learn about the American culture. We support them, obviously. And, Brock and Boston and those guys, we don't mind them as well. I think they're pretty decent people as well. I think it's important to realize that not all of these family channels are, created the same, and not all of them are these evil people that people make them out to be. I myself love to spend and play board games with my family. I love to enjoy the company of my wife, my kids, and stuff like that. Once a week we have game night. I think it's important to do that because your kids are only your kids for so long, and then they're grown up. And they move on, and then they get on with their own friends. I have a son and a daughter, and I love every moment I spend with them because it's a lot of fun, and that's what life is about, is transferring it over to the next generation. So I'm sorry to anyone who is being affected by the negative effects of others, and I hope that people can understand that it's not all families are like this. It's just that one family. And I think it's also important to realize that, that was the parents, not the kids. And the kids shouldn't be affected by that, nor should anyone be upset with them as much as the parents. That's an adult thing, and that's the parents' issue, not the kids. But also, not every family is the same. So stop making these people to be negative and stop, basically a lot of people see someone who's dancing and having a good time as being something negative. I don't know what's wrong with the person or what's so wrong in your life where you can see someone dancing and see something negative in that, but that's a you problem, not a them problem. And to those people who are affected by people with their negative comments and their hatred towards someone who is enjoying life, that's a them problem, not a you problem. Let them hate, let them be jealous, let them be upset the fact that you have a good family life, you have a loving relationship, and you genuinely have a good time with your family. That is what should be important, not what other people are assuming or thinking. Because, at the end of the day, you know your intentions better than anybody else. Don't let these negative Nancy's bring you down into changing who you are. Yes, you should always be safe. There are always creeps online. There are always creeps everywhere. But you know what? As a family, as a group, as a unit, one of the things I do for YouTubers, whenever I find out someone's also on YouTube, I take it upon myself to reach out and welcome them to YouTube, because I've been around since YouTube has been around. Whether you know that or not, that's, that is what it is. Now you know. And I've had a great relationship with a lot of the early YouTubers who I'm still friends with. Some of them are not there anymore, and some of them are. But the important thing is, remember, at the end of the day, allow people to be themselves. Don't be jumping on negativity, and don't let these negative Nancy's change who you are, your family dynamics, or anything else. Those of us who get it, those of us who support you, understand that, and will always support love and always support the F4L way, which is ultimately what that is. Love, care, and compassion, understanding and respect for each other's differences. So, remember, at the end of the day, folks, make someone else's day today. Hold the door open for someone. Tell someone something nice. Give someone a put up instead of a put down. Give someone a compliment. Tell someone you love them. Tell someone they're your friend. Because you don't know what tomorrow brings, and you might not get that opportunity again. Trust me, I know that all too well. Folks, I am the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens, and tomorrow morning I will be heading down to Hunt Valley, Maryland for Monster Mania 56. I hope to see you guys down there. If you're not going to be there, hey, I'll see you down the road eventually. And to everyone who is waiting to come on the F4L Headquarters Podcast, when I get back on Monday, we'll get you guys in here and we'll bring back the world. So, everyone, no matter what it is in life you do, keep going forward, go after and get it, and may all your dreams come true. Peace, everybody.